So I thought today we would start with one of Garry Kasparov's most famous games. Garry Kasparov was the world champion from really a long time, like 1985 to 2000, yeah, around 2000. And this is one
Wow.
of his most famous games that he played in 1999. He played a crazy attack. I want to fast forward. I don't even want to show the whole thing. I want to fast forward to an interesting part here. The main sacrifice, I guess we can see quickly, is that he sacrifices rook here. Rook takes d4, trying to, when black takes back, he got his queen in and attack on the king. Oh, then he sacrificed another rook, which was crazy too, which black was not able to take the second rook. We can look at that another time why that wasn't so. And amazingly, the black king is all the way up here.
Wow.
So white has sacrificed, I think he's down like a rook and a knight. But, I mean, the king's on a4. So, I mean, white's got to have something in compensation. Let's see. So, wait, what happened next? What happened next? Okay, queen to c3. Black won another pawn. And now I want to kind of pause here and talk about this. How should white continue his attack?
I mean,
he could theoretically trade queens, but I don't know if it's gonna.
White to trade queens?
I mean, he could, but it's just not going to turn out well for him because he's down already so much. I guess not really.
It's counterintuitive. Let's not rule anything out, but I mean, it's counterintuitive to trade queens here because black's up by a knight and a rook. We know that usually the side ahead wants to trade off.
Yeah.
Well, he could just take the knight right now.
Okay, let's look at that. So meaning he would only be down by a rook. You're saying would help, and then maybe he's threatening to take the ace.
Except that if he moves his queen out of that area, well, actually, yeah, he would be threatening, right? But I mean, I was thinking black is threatening queen to d1.
Right.
Black's also threatening to take the a3 pawn, which I mean could.
That's another interesting thing. The king could get up further. Let's look at the more forceful queen d1 check. What would white do against that?
He wouldn't really have a choice but to move to either a2 or b2.
Okay, let's say he moves to a2.
Well, then he should really move to b2 because otherwise that pawn will be taken.
Right. Okay. So let's say he moves to b2.
Well, actually, at that point, he is pretty much safe because if he threatens with the queen, he's just going to trade.
But who's safe?
Meaning the king, the white king.
But what if black What if black just plays queen of d4 check and trades off queens?
So,
like, we're looking at this, guys. We're looking at
such an issue.
Does this seem like an issue to you? So now let's say for all intents and purposes that black is probably safe because, you know, there's not queens on the board. Where are we?
I mean, but what's it called? But white could put his rook onto a7.
Okay, fine. That's fair. That's a good shot. It's a good shot. How would black try to defend against that? I mean, that is a big threat. That is checkmate.
Yeah. I don't know. It's.
Can black guard that pawn somehow?
Well, yeah, he can move up his rook to d6.
Right. Does white have another follow-up here?
I mean, he could just take the pawn on f7.
I mean, his bishop's also looking pretty free. I don't know what he's doing with it yet, but for sure could get that.
The problem is that black, I mean, black's a good player. Black's a grandmaster. So black overall has an extra rook. It's true that white has 2 pawns in exchange, but usually unless there's like a forced checkmate, the side with the extra rook is going to figure out how to consolidate and win.
Right.
So white had to find something a little bit more like forceful than this. Let's go. But we already saw a lot of cool ideas with bringing the rook over here. Let's go back to the original position. So maybe grabbing the knight was a little bit, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Just because black can force the trade of queens on his terms.
Right.
White could he could put his queen on c7.
Oh, that's clever. That's threatening checkmate on a5.
I mean, he has 2 different ways. Yeah, he can then put it into a5, or even he could
Over
go to
a5 here?
he could go to a7.
Interesting. I'm wondering though, does black also have a way out of this? If black like starts checking him, if black's going to be able to kind of pull out of this here.
Yeah, he's probably just going to end up in that same situation with trading queens.
Probably. I mean, this is a little bit trickier. I mean, I guess now black can maybe try grabbing. I'm sorry, white's check. Oh wait, so let's see here. So maybe let's see. So let's say white places king back here, and then what? Black can maybe check again.
Then he could block with the queen.
But blocking with the queen, that's exactly what black wants.
Oh, the pawn also.
Here with the pawn, I'm worried that that black's queen and rook are going to get too active, and black is going to be able to.
Right now, it's just going to.
If black brings in his
checkmate.
queen here and then brings the rook down, that's going to be. Then white's going to get
checkmate.
checkmated.
Right.
Let's see any other ideas. I mean, I think we need something that threatens checkmate that doesn't leave a lot of options for black.
Right.
So far, we've been looking at the white queen. Any other pieces white could try?
Again, I still think the bishop is sitting there a bit.
Okay.
I'm not sure what yet, but he's kind of not really doing much.
Let's keep an eye on it. Now, guys, what about the rook? Because the rook came up in one of the variations we were looking at. We looked at a variation where we traded queens, then we brought the rook in.
I mean, why can't the rook do what we were saying before? Put him on a7.
Yeah, let's try that. I think that's actually the move he played, guys. He actually played this move. And this is threatening checkmate here. The question is, how can black guard that checkmate?
Well, either the rook or the queen to d6.
Yeah.
Let's say that I guess the simplest move is just to play here. How would white then follow this up? Black's got this guarded. The question is, what other piece can white bring in? Yoni mentioned bringing the bishop. The bishop's a little bit far away. Is there any other way white can create like a checkmate net here?
I mean, he can move up his queen to c7.
Okay. Queen can come up.
Then he'll
I wonder if
get
black's
checked.
going to get some of this stuff again.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it could be that, I don't know if it's going, or one thing we have to be careful about is every time we move that we have to be careful that white king can't just grab this pawn. That's
Right.
another thing to be just thinking about.
Well, but if he does, it would just be checkmate queen to a5.
Oh, good point. Good point. So maybe black cannot afford that. So you're saying here, The question is if black can maybe just maybe get at least a draw, potentially more. Hey, Moshe.
Right.
What's going on, guys?
I'm just looking at a famous game here from Garry Kasparov, who's playing white here, and he sacrificed a rook and a knight already. And we're trying to figure out how he continued his attack. So this does look pretty interesting. I mean, I'm wondering if black could at least get a draw. Maybe do better than a draw. I'm not totally sure. He could, by the way, even try sacrificing back the queen, which would, oh no, he can't because he's got checkmated. Maybe black would have to settle for a draw here. I'm not sure. But the way white played is a way he actually played for a win. And we're in this position, white to play.
Yes. Well, he could try checking with his queen on B3, but
that
then he
almost
just ends up trading
works.
queens and losing
Yeah,
a,
but
That
his
almost
queen,
works.
losing a pawn.
Right, but then
This
the
is the only
problem
other
is at
thing
the
I
end
feel
of
like
it, black gets
happening.
the pawn. But that's definitely an idea we have. We're working with though. Is that almost works? Is there any way we can build on that?
I mean, if your king was moved up a bit,
Aha, yeah. How so?
I mean, the king would probably have to be on B2.
Yes, and that is the key move. Guys, look at this move. All of a sudden, it's the king that is completing the checkmate net for white. How does black even stop how does he even stop checkmate here? You guys see the
Wait,
threat? White is threatening to check here, and when black trades the queens, it's all of a sudden this pawn, which is literally, nobody thought about this pawn, not to mention, nobody even thought about the white king or the pawn probably.
Right.
All of a sudden, this pawn is going to come up and give checkmate. It's pretty crazy. How is black even going to stop this? Like, how can he stop this very simple move?
It looks like it's impossible. I mean,
He could sacrifice his queen. He could put his queen. No, I don't know if that's gonna help.
What on A2?
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna help.
I think after white takes it, it's the same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Now, what if he tries pinning the white queen, saying, "Hey, listen, you can't move your queen." That's one attempt.
That's a good.
Right.
That's a good idea.
How could white proceed now?
Well, then he'd just be able to put his rook back into
Then
the same
he
place.
then
No,
he
'cause after he
trades queens
trades-
and he moves the rook in.
Yeah, he's gonna put the rook in.
Nice.
Yeah.
He just trades, and then because that's
White's rook, yeah.
the amazing thing about it is that white's really coming at black from behind him with the rook and in front of him with the queen and the king.
wow.
So that's why this attack was so powerful. Is even though black, I mean, look, black had extra pieces, but his extra pieces, his extra rook and knight weren't really participating, and white was coming at black from behind with this rook move that we saw. When he brought this rook over, he's coming from behind, and he's also coming up front with the king and the queen, and the pawn all of a sudden, which is crazy how the pawn just joins. So in the
Wow.
game itself, black ended up finding a defense. Black realized that if he sacrificed his bishop here, which, by the way, when white took it, black didn't even take back, because if he took back, he would get checkmated here. Black, being a grandmaster, figured out by sacrificing his bishop, he could play on longer, but white still ended up winning in like a really cool way.
Wait, so how did that help this situation?
It helped because now white's no longer at least threatening checkmate here. So then black at least tried to trade queens. But then white finally cashed in, said, okay, fine. I took back the bishop. Now I'm taking back the knight. And now this is kind of like a better version of what we looked at earlier. remember when that was the first thing you guys suggested is taking the knight, because now the queen's threatening checkmate on a6, and now essentially what black had to give up this pawn move, by the way, is this pawn. It's amazing how this pawn ended up deciding the game right here. Because in the this is what happened in the actual game, is that here white was able, through a series of checks, to force the king all the way here. And now with this bishop, remember, Yoni, you wanted the bishop to join? The bishop finally joined, and the black queen is stuck because the bishop is helping to set up a checkmate here on e2 or c2. So white had to give up, black had to finally give up his queen there. And white ended up, once he won that rook, he was able to kind of, figure it out from here.
Can we go through that, getting the queen again?
Yes, let's go through that. I mean, the tactics here were insane. He got the queen here because here he attacked the queen with his bishop, with his last move. Black counterattacked the white queen. And then now it would be a mistake to take this queen now because black would just trade off here and it would be kind of like an evenish, more like an even position. Instead, white pinned the rook.
He would gain the rook.
Yeah, but he would lose. He would basically it would end up in an even position where both sides have like a rook and 3 pawns. Right?
Okay.
Because if white took here, maybe white would win that pawn back, but it's just totally even. White's not really, or maybe white would even take this pawn, but it's not like a totally winning position or anything like that.
Right.
So instead, in this position here, white pinned the rook with rook to d7. Now the rook can't take the queen because, or else the black king would be in check. You guys can see this pin here. So once the rook is pinned, that's when the rook had to go back and take off that rook. And now white takes queen. And now the queen suddenly jumps across the whole board to capture that rook.
Wow. Wait, why did he take the bishop instead of moving his rook?
That's a good question. I think because of the checkmate that white was going to do on e2. I think right here on e2, white was about to do checkmate with his queen.
Wait, sorry. I just got very distracted for a sec.
What happened there? I think on e2, white was about to checkmate his queen on e2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question though. Or I just realized also c1 would also be checkmate.
Wow.
I don't think so. I don't think black. It's just amazing how many checkmates there were in this game. I don't think black can stop both.
Well, if he moved his rook to because he would still have the c1.
Yeah, there's like no way to stop it. Like if you moved his rook to e8, you're saying?
Yeah.
If you moved his rook to e8, it just wouldn't.
No, because then he has the other checkmate.
Yeah, you'd still have the checkmate on c1.
Wow.
So that's why I mean, they
player.
call this like the game of the century. I mean, this was, you can see how the game finally ended here with white just kind of setting it up here with bringing in his king. And then this is where he resigned because once the queen gets in over here, then it's just the queen's coming in from a whole different angle and black can't defend anymore.
Well, what was the other guy's, thought process over here? I'm saying he was obviously trying to play the best defense possible with.
He did. I mean, he played great.
What was like
white? It's not like he collapsed or anything. It's just that white had so many amazing moves in a row that were very forced. That black's options were limited the whole way through.
Why did he sacrifice his stuff in the beginning? You said he sacrificed it, he didn't lose it. He like sacrificed a rook and a bishop or a rook and a knight.
Yes, he sacrificed in the beginning because he saw, that's the amazing thing, is he saw so many moves ahead. I mean, let's look at what number move. The game ended on move 44. He sacrificed on move, I think like 24. When he sacrificed his rook here, he had to see almost all of that. Because remember, if he's not winning, black's going to be ahead by so much that black's going to win. So that's why this game was so impressive, is he was able to see ahead so far to realize that it would work out.
Wow.
A good chess player.
Very good. I mean, we're talking about Garry Kasparov, so. But even for him, this is one of his, like, maybe it's his like #1 most famous game.